Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back. In case you missed the other video, how to buy a used acoustic guitar at a pawn shop, this is about electric guitars now, okay? Now, with that, electric guitars come in all kinds of shapes, sizes too, usually not quite as big as acoustics ever, but, they are much smaller bodies regardless, and they tend to be, got some weight to them. This one's almost 10 pounds, so it's a little bit on the heavy side. Okay, now like the last video, I talked about things to look for. Okay, I mean, you got to have some decent tuners to keep the tune going. Okay, so that it stays in tune properly. You don't want a guitar that's got some really super dirt cheap tuners on them because they're generally garbage. But as long as they have like a sealed tuner, similar idea to this or even this style of a tuner. Although these are cheaper, they're actually really good tuners usually. Okay. So, the idea here is you don't want to have to upgrade just to get something playable, okay? So, with an electric guitar, though, these are generally, the majority of them are what's called a solid body. So, it's a solid piece of wood. Unless you're buying a semi-hollow or a hollow body, those you'll want to definitely look for, telltale signs of warpage in the wood, because that does affect the guitar having warps in it. Though usually in a semi-hollow body guitar, of course, you're going to have a big block of wood going down the middle. Okay, so you're not going to have to worry about bridge lifting issues or that sort of thing on a semi-hollow. But on a full hollow body, you don't want any kind of warpage anywhere because that can really make a complete disaster. So you want to really check a full hollow body out very much so differently. Okay. And semi-hollows and hollows generally have more of an acoustic size diameter to the body, but they're still very thin either way. Now, if you're learning stuff where it's just all regular chords you're doing and bar chords perhaps, you're playing just everyday music that's not rock and roll. So you're not playing like bow, bow, bow type of stuff. You're not doing power chords, okay? Go to an acoustic guitar to play regular stuff on, but electrics are more for, yes, you can play a lot of that same regular chord stuff, which is fine, okay, but you're going to have a harder time learning how to strum initially on an electric because the bodies are so small. You're going to be really hunched over, which I find a lot of people do that mistake. They hunch over too much. This can affect your ability to strum. Guitars, electric guitars can be strummed much better when you're standing up and playing them, okay? And you're not chopping wood here, you're using your wrist, okay? Now, the criticalness of sizing up an average electric guitar or solid body, it's not as critical as it is on an acoustic guitar. But your person who is going to be playing that guitar has to be able to wrap their hands around the neck properly. Some of these have fat necks. Like acoustics, some have fat, some have skinny. So kind of forgot to mention that part in the last video, but yeah, refer. But there's wider necks, there's narrower necks. You got to be able to get your hands around things for the size of the person playing in their hand size, okay? So it's very important. Otherwise, you're going to have a really hard time doing a lot of stuff if the neck is too fat and too wide. And sometimes even if it's too narrow and skinny and you got fat fingers, you're going to need more string spacing, so you need a different kind of guitar that's going to give you that string spacing, so space between each string, okay? Now electrics, like I mentioned in the last video, they tend to have a much lower action on them for string height off the frets. This one's pretty low. It's not as low as I have owned before. The one guitar I actually regret ever getting rid of was my Godin Session. That thing, the strings were so low they were almost touching the frets. Not one would even buzz. But we're not talking about a cheap guitar either. Now this is no cheap guitar, okay? So it tends to be a very expensive guitar. But, you get what you get, right? But remember, pawn shops don't pay very much, but they do charge exorbitant amount of money for guitars. They don't tend to pay a lot of money. In fact, I think the best example I could give you that I should have on the last one is I had an old 1970s Martin 12 string. Now, back in the day, it probably only sold for $500 or $600 back then, in that kind of money back then. But in today's money, that's a $10,000 guitar. That one I regretted. But I had to help out a family member, which was fine. And it's like, well, I'm not really playing it anyways. It was a righty. And although I do play both, I play better left. So I did part with it. It was the only way I could help out the family member. And the pawn shop gave me $700. They probably made $8,000 on that guitar, easy money, okay? So, because it was worth actually $10,000, okay? So yeah, I got really screwed. Pawn shops are there to screw you, not help you, okay? But like the other video, you want to look at divots, any divots in the frets. And if all your frets have divots on underneath every string, probably good indication to stay away from it, okay? You're going to be in for some fret work. And, you know, even several years ago, fret work was $22 a fret. It's probably $35 a fret by now to have each fret replaced that's bad, okay? And I've seen guitars where every single fret was shot, okay? However, that being said, a lot of guitars generally do have, like, virtually no fret wear. That's fine. But you still got to go through every string, every fret, check for buzz, find out where that buzz may be coming from, you know. I mean, it's not much of a bargaining chip with a pawn shop because they don't like to bargain generally, okay? They just charge what they charge, and if you don't like their price, you go elsewhere. You know, which is why I generally say, unless you really know and understand guitars really well, and you're willing to put in time, effort, and work on it yourself to save money, don't bother buying pawn shop guitars, because you're just going to end up getting screwed either way, okay? And in many cases, you're getting screwed on the price too, because a lot of guitars are definitely overpriced, regardless of what they are. Like this guitar, for example, this is a 2015 Les Paul. Now, I got the brand new warranty with it and all that. It's old stock, but it's still brand new guitar, right? Either way, but it's new old stock. But I also didn't have to pay over $1,000 for it. I paid like $700 for it. So that's fine. A pawn shop would pay you probably $150 to $200 tops for this. They'll sell it for $450, $500, $600 because they know they can get that, okay, from somebody eventually. And they'll wait it out, trust me. They're not in any big hurry. You know, they have money to burn. That's why they're pawn shops, because they got a lot of money kicking around. That's how they keep in business, right? They're there to make money. So, and believe me, they score off of us. Anyways, but solid tops, you don't have as much worries, other than you do have to worry with electric guitars about the pots, okay? Make sure there's no scratchy sounds. You're gonna have to plug this thing into an amplifier, okay? Now I've got an amp here, I'm gonna turn it on, we're gonna plug this little puppy in here, and we're gonna go through it. Okay, so there's no scratchiness, we're good. We'll go to the neck pickup by itself. We're going to check the tone control out. Functions properly. Check the other one out. Okay, in between position. Okay, so everything's functioning the way it should. That's normal, okay? We know the guitar tunes. We know it's going to stay in tune. It's probably going to need new strings anyways. If it's in a pawn shop, it needs new strings right away. So you're going to have to do something right away with it. And same with your acoustics. Put a new set of strings on, because they're probably pretty rusted, and you don't really want to go for a tetanus shot that bad, do you? So, but we do the same thing. We just test. But we are going to test every fret right to the end. So we know this thing is actually perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. It's great. There's no wear on the frets. We check the neck straightness. Put your thumb there, put your finger there. check for relief. This neck is actually dead straight. There's actually no relief on this at all, but it's not buzzing or anything, so to me that's fine. You should have a little bit of relief though, like just even if it's a minor amount, like 5/1000ths relief, is still, you should have at least that technically. This thing has like none, but I haven't taken the time to adjust the truss rod in this thing yet either, so. But it plays fine, so I'm not too concerned yet. So, and you do have to look for the ever-loving hump disease, even in electrics. Even electrics can get hump disease in the neck, okay? It does happen even on expensive brands, cheaper brand guitars, and all it takes is taking the guitar, close an eye, keep an eye open, look straight down the neck, and what you're looking for is like a hump, okay? If it has any sign of a hump, run, okay? So whether it's an inner hump or an outer hump, run. You don't want that guitar. This is also the kind of a guitar too, you gotta watch guitars. This neck does not bolt on, so it's not gonna be cheap to replace the neck if there's a neck issue with this thing. So you don't wanna buy somebody's piece of garbage, okay? I mean, a lot of those guitars end up in there because people have tortured them, they've terrorized them. They're basically bacon meat, okay? And so you don't want to buy them, right? But if you can find a good score, you can find a good score. Sometimes you do. Now this also has what's called a fixed bridge, so there's no whammy bar on here at all, so no tremolo system. There's another name for it. It's a deck system, but it is fully adjustable for adjusting your string height, and you got to make sure you keep that radius or angle going. So, you know, check it with a micrometer. This side should be lower than this side, so you turn your screws accordingly to lower, turn them accordingly to bring the string height up as well. The other thing I look at too is I hold down, say, my first fret, or I'll go to the second fret, and the fret in front where the open area is here, okay? So this would be actually at the, I'm holding the second, so I'm looking at the fourth. I'm looking to see how much space is there, and it does have some pretty good clearance. It's not touching the fret at all. It's got some distance, so that's good. So it's going to ring out a good sound, and that's what we want to know. We want to hear that too. Now, with guitars with whammies or tremolo systems, we have this one here. Now, this is my Kramer. Now, you'll find this same exact bridge design with 6 screws in it on a lot of your Stratocaster type guitars or Stratocaster style guitars. You're going to definitely find them here. You might even get a 2-point system. But either way, what you want to look for is the bridge. Now, most guys that have these kind of bridges, 2-point or 6, they deck them. And this was decked from the factory, which means the bridge sits flat against the body, so you can't pull back and make your notes go higher. Now, on something like a Floyd Rose, that's where you have a locking nut with some Allen key screws and a bar across here. You've got your main fine-tuning tuners here. You're going to have to tune here first with this unlocked, tune it up, but not to actual pitch, just slightly below. And then you crank it down, and then you can tune up to pitch from this end. And there's a special way to tune those. I do not recommend Floyd Rose systems for any beginner player ever, because you will severely hate your guitar. I promise you that. You will want to throw it in the nearest fire pit, because it's going to frustrate the living tarmac out of you, okay? Been there, done that, okay? Nowadays, I can handle a Floyd, okay? Now, when you come to these kind of whammy systems like this, 6 or 2-point, on any brand of guitar, they don't stay in tune very well when you use the whammy bar, especially when you use it incorrectly, okay? Which most of us do tend to do, and that's why we're forever retuning even our Strats, because we're using it wrong. Because when you push down on the whammy bar, you slacken the strings, they slacken up here, pressure goes back on, and yeah, it's not the same. It's whacked out of tune, right? So there's a special method for learning to use a whammy. So most Strat players, okay, or anybody with this kind of a system on their guitar, they deck the bridge, or they leave it decked from the factory. They don't even use the whammy bar. They may have it there for looks, or they may not have it on at all. I don't even have mine on because I don't want to deal with that garbage, okay? So, but I bought the guitar because I like the guitar. And it's a right-handed guitar that was under 300 bucks, and it plays really nice, and it's going to help me with my right-handed guitar playing for doing electric stuff. And I have a right-handed acoustic for the same thing. I'm primarily a left-handed player, but I do play right-handed as well. But I wanted the simplicity of this thing, and I kind of really like the Berettas. They're kind of nice, and they're inexpensive. They're good quality guitars. Generally, really good fretwork on these things. Never had an issue. This is also my second Beretta. And I like them. I think they're really good, so I decided to get one again. But anyways. So, these are the basics of the same sort of deal, you know. Now, the other thing I want to caution you on, again, I can't always get everything into one video, so I did miss this, but if you do have the nut and washer up here, make sure you get a 10mm wrench, because that's the size you need. And you want to snug these up. Not reef on them. Do not reef. Just snug them up, because buzzing may not be on your fretboard when you're hearing buzzing, okay? That could be the washers, because these nuts are loose, and every single brand new guitar that I've ever touched has always had loose nuts. Not necessarily did the washer vibrate and buzz, but the nuts were always loose. So my general practice, even used, because I bought this used the other day, yesterday, and I had to tighten the nuts on it, and the washers were actually loose too on this one. So, you know, because this guitar was very dried up, not properly humidified in the pawn shop. So, but even brand new ones that are properly humidified, I've always had to snug these nuts up. Just snug them. Don't reef. You reef, you're going to damage things. You can break the headstock too. So you just want to snug them up. Just a slight snugness, okay? That's all you need. Just keep that in mind. All right? So, but yeah, other than that, I mean, there's not really too much to know about the guitars. You just make sure your electronics are working fine. You make sure the jack is working fine. If you're plugged into an amp, which you better be if you're going to try one of these things out at a pawn shop or any store, check for, you know, back and forth pull to see if it's cutting out or not. If it is, then you're going to need a jack repair. Or maybe you got a crappy cable too. Crappy cables can cause problems. It's usually highly unknown, but if you've got a good cable, which should be good and tested good on another guitar in the pawn shop, then you know it's not the cable, it's going to be the jack has some issues, in which case that's going to have to be addressed, so be prepared to spend more money. So it kind of depends on where you're at and how much you really want to pork into a used guitar. I recommend, if you're going to buy used guitars, buy them from music stores that have used guitars, because you also get warranties, real warranties, okay? Pawn shops, they give you like an in-store credit warranty, because they can't replace it. They can't actually fix it themselves either. And they're not going to pay the bill to have it repaired, because even guitar techs cost money, okay? So they just generally give you an in-store credit, and then you're at a loss. So this is why you check stuff out thoroughly before you purchase, so that you don't get screwed. But also remember too to always check out the model number of the guitar, find out what it sells for brand new, if it's still available, and then take a look at current used prices, and then decide if you want to buy it from the hawk shop or not, okay, that you happen to be dealing with. So, because you may find that they're ripping you off on price and it's worth far less on the used market. They're just trying to blood suck you for some more money. So that can happen too. And then you get the odd score gems, like I got on this one yesterday with the case was $187 new. So yeah, I paid $185 tax in with the case, the guitar, some extra goodies with it. I more than got a score and a half, and all I had to do is, you know, oil the fretboard, clean up the frets, put a new set of strings on, clean up the fret ends mostly, because I still want the wood to reese well, because I know it's pretty dry and shrunken in a bit, you know. So that was a great score, you know, and that doesn't always happen. But I also know what I'm looking for too, what I'm looking at. So that's the difference too, and that's why I'm doing this video as well as the one previous, to help you guys to get a good deal out of pawn shop. But if you are a beginner player, I still don't recommend going to a pawn shop. Go to a music store that sells both new and used. They will set you up. But with the acoustic thing, that's critical that you be set up properly. You never grow into a guitar. Now, stay tuned for our next video, where we're going to talk about why you never take guitar lessons at a music store. See ya.